Well, hello and welcome. This is Angela Jane Doglin, and I'm recording the second in this video series about learning to dowse because I believe it's something that will really assist all and every one of you to increase your own resiliency, your own independence, and help you to make clearer choices once you've got the hang of it. So in the introduction last time, I mentioned a few things about why I came to use it and what my background is. Now, this time I'm going to actually discuss the pendulum itself. And so I showed you last time the one which I use the most, which is a brass one, so it's quite heavy. And you'll see it already has a natural swing to it, which is telling me that it's ready to go. One I keep in the kitchen all the time. This one's made of resin and crystal ground together. This is quite light, but I use this one for dowsing my supplements. It's quite sensitive. However, for today's purposes, because I did say before that you don't need to rush out and buy one, if you wish to experiment, you can actually make your own. So here is one I made earlier out of Play-Doh, my grandson's Play-Doh. And I've got some thick thread, it's like a waxed thread, and I tied several knots in at the end. You can actually see here that the Play-Doh is starting to dry out and crack a bit, but that's okay. I tied a bundle knot which I embedded into the center to give it the weight. Then I just rolled it into shape, tried to make it balanced, and away you go. On the other end, I've actually tied a bead, because what this does, I hold that in between my fingers there, so the cord doesn't slip, and then I can relax my hand as I'm holding the pendulum. And again, it tunes into me very easily, because you might remember I said before the pendulum does not have specific powers on its own. What it is an extension of your physical form. It's a visible tool to help you to see and to measure the energies that come through your body, so you can set an intention about something or a goal, and you can focus your mind upon that point, and then your questions are geared towards that point. But it is the intention that gives you the strength of purpose as you start to ask the questions. Now, first of all, we talk about programming the pendulum. So you need to get your pendulum right. Some people hold it from the bead and keep it long like this. But in actual fact, if you do it that way, it's not very accurate, I find. The swing is quite slow, and you'll find you have to wait an incredibly long time to get a result. Also, holding your arm up in the air, it's not a great ideal. When I'm dowsing, I keep my elbow tucked in against the body to brace, and I keep mine relatively short, but that's the length that works for me. For you, it might be here, and you might have a very quick swing. It might be a little bit longer. It depends, and you can adjust this over time. You've got to find the length, first of all, that's right for you. This is part of the calibration process. The next thing we do, I'm going to show you this. This is a protractor, the kind we use in geometry at school. And I also have a sheet with a similar type of measurements drawn out on it, because this is a good way to practice when you get going. For instance, if you're trying to spell out a name, you might want to use the sheet of paper. But for the purposes to begin with, we start with the 90 line at the midpoint. This is going to be your neutral. So you set your pendulum up at your optimum place. You can see how mine is a little bit lopsided, but it's still balanced. You allow your pendulum to swing away, towards and away from you, on that 90 line, and that's your 0 point. And you will focus your mind and you ask the pendulum to show you your yes answer. I don't know if you noticed that then, this pendulum started to swing towards my left in a circular motion. So that's showing me what my yes answer is. Okay, now be still. Now please could you show me my no answer? And it's swinging in the opposite direction. So that's towards my right. And the yes is towards my left. Maybe completely the opposite way around for you. In actual fact, years ago it used to be the other way around for me, but for some reason it changed. And so it's always good to check in periodically and find out what your pendulum is actually trying to tell you. You've always got to remain this neutral analytical mind. So that's the calibration part. Next, you want to get going. So you've got to decide how to ask closed questions. So closed questions are ones which you can answer with a yes or a no. So they're very simple questions. And by doing that, you are narrowing down the way that your pendulum can answer your question. It's either a yes answer or it's a no. We're not doing anything else right now. So when you've practiced a little bit and you are able to clearly discern those yes or no answers, you're ready to move to the next stage. Now, when I first began, a lot of my interest was tailored around dowsing the suitability of different foodstuffs, because I was going through a difficult time nutritionally then, or the suitability of supplements, not just for myself, but for other people too. And so this is where the protractor comes in handy. So if you use the 90 line as your 0 point, and again, you've got the pendulum swinging backwards and forwards, and you ask to be shown in line with your yes or no answer. So for me, my yes answer would swing into this half of the pendulum. So it would give a positive reading. And so your question can be tailored something like, please give me an indication, no, not an indication. Please show me how good or bad is this supplement in this moment for me. Now you have to specify this moment in time because our biochemistry changes all the time with every single thing that we put into our mouth and every single stage of processing within the body. So you have to factor in every circumstance. And so when you are clear about your intention, then you begin the process. Because if your mind is wandering all over the place and you haven't yet identified the question clearly, then you're going to get very vague or mixed results. It's not going to be reliable, and that's going to put you off. So you need to be certain about what it is that you're trying to achieve. And once you've got that certainty, then go ahead and hone your question, because the first time you ask, it may not be quite as clear as it could be. So keep checking back in with yourself about whether that question could be misread, it could be ambiguous. And when you've narrowed it down, then go with that first reading. And another little useful tip, keep a piece of paper and a pencil by your side to write down each value. Because what happens is, the dowsing process is quite interesting. It's like a trail of breadcrumbs. And as you get answers to the different questions that you ask, you will find that your mind starts to go on a journey. Well, if that, then could this be happening? And you will open to possibilities. And this is a good thing. It's very exploratory. I enjoy the exploration process. And I hope that your mind will develop its own inquisitive way to perhaps expand your thinking processes too. So it's really interesting and quite fun. So yeah, we've talked about getting comfortable with the hold, how to discern your answers, and programming your pendulum. Now, you can of course use dowsing to do other materialistic decisions. I would discourage those from being too materialistic in terms of things that you want to acquire. But one thing it can be useful for is, for instance, getting different tradespeople in. So I have before now, just when we used to have telephone directories years ago, I can just scan down a list of names and pick out the ones that actually I resonate with their energy just from a name. So what you can do if you want to then further narrow that process down, write those names on identical sized pieces of paper, fold them up, and you can include in your choices, for instance, you're trying to find a new decorator, painter and decorator. So you write down all your options on pieces of paper that are the same size, and then you frame the question. Fold them all up so they're identical, and you jumble them up so you don't know which one's which, and then frame the question. All things being considered, which of these possibilities is the best for my circumstance, or would bring the best possible outcome? And so you're not being specific and narrowing it down to price. It's more about all of the factors. So you might be looking at the cost, whether you like the energy of the person that you're going to have in your house, whether they do a good job, whether they're going to be timely, whether they're going to meet your expectations or hopes. So all of those things rolled into one will create your best possible outcome, and that's what you're asking about. So then you can dowse on a scale of 1 to 5, for instance, where 1 is the least suitable and 5 is the best. Or you can do 1 to 10 if it's something that you want a more refined reading upon. And you will generally find quite specific differences in those readings. And it's great to open that piece of paper and think, that's my first instinct. So it can often back up what you first thought, which is great when it does. Another thing I use the dowsing for sometimes is I use a flow chart of meridian energies. So if I'm noticing a particular imbalance in the body and I'm not quite sure, because of the way that the meridians hang together, the way that they all impact each other, it's not always obvious which one needs to be worked upon at any time. So I will ask, which one is the key meridian to work upon to resolve or improve my situation and bring about balance? And again, then I can look up what I need to do to actually improve, which pressure points I need to work on to improve that particular meridian. And pretty much always I find that there's a definite improvement. So using dowsing is a shortcut. It's a great way to get to where you want to go without seeking input where you don't actually know if it's accurate for you. It's about trusting your own instinct and getting to your own answers by yourself. So you can, if you want to, you can even make a pendulum like this out of a lump of chewing gum. Admittedly, it would have to be quite big, and stick them onto a piece of cotton. I hope that's given you some food for thought. If you want more information, you can sign up to my newsletter, my mailing list, and when you sign up, you can get this free ebook, and I will mail that to you, and you can set off on your own dowsing journey and start practicing, because this is all about practice. And the biggest thing you will learn about yourself upon this journey is about how clever we can be, how subtly we can deceive ourselves from the bias of our own thinking. So it's about developing neutral thinking and about being really truthful with yourself. So I hope you've enjoyed that. You can find more about my work at angeladelglyn.com, and I really look forward to hearing from you in due course. Thanks for listening.